Smiley from the Energy Boutique with your Energy and Ascension Forecast for Sunday, January 23rd to Saturday, January 29th. So we're moving into the very last week of January, and there are going to be some pretty profound insights, pretty profound changes, as if there haven't been enough already. But before we jump into this week's astrology and energy, let's cover what happened last week. So we had that very potent, very overwhelming, very emotional full moon in Cancer on the 17th. Definitely ripped open our heart space. We had a lot of releasing to do, a lot of purging to do, and for many of us, we had to reach for the tissues. Now, a lot did manifest as anger, as frustration, as just damn near brokenheartedness. And because all that we have been through over the last little bit, we definitely had a lot to unleash, to purge, to get out of our physical body. Now, the full moon in Cancer, although did kind of hype us up and amplify a lot of those emotions, whichever way they decided to come out, definitely set us up for a very energetic beginning of the week, because just hours after the full moon peaked, we had Uranus, the Great Awakener, come out of his 5-month retrograde and go direct. Now, Uranus brings a lot of shock. He brings a lot of disruption. He is the revolutionist of the zodiac. And I don't know about y'all, but if you were paying attention to the worldwide news, we definitely had some profound changes take place. There was some very interesting information that emerged, especially where certain countries are deciding to either go ahead or step all the way back from some of their pandemic type of plans. We can't even talk about this Uranian energy without talking about the very extreme weather patterns, especially with that underwater volcano explosion that just reverberated throughout the cosmos. I don't know if you guys seen that aerial view out in space about what that actually looked like, and following the lines of that reverberation go through the seas, go through the ocean, hit the earth. It was absolutely profound. And I fear that that is just the beginnings of these very strange weather patterns, especially with Uranus now direct. We are having the earth awaken to a brand new level. There's a lot of electricity coming in from the cosmos. She, Mother Gaia, of course, is an awakening to a brand new pulse rate. There's a lot popping off. On the same day as Uranus went direct, we had the true nodes shift into this Taurus and Scorpio axis. And this is setting us up for some very profound life lessons over the next 18 months. Interesting thing, though, to think about, we were on the Gemini-Sagittarius axis, which meant that Mercury, the ruler of the mental plane, and Jupiter, ruler of growth and expansion, ruled over us for the last 18 months. And Lord knows there was a lot of overwhelming information, a lot of very big ideas, big changes absolutely took place worldwide. And to think that we are now passing that baton over to Venus and Pluto is going to be very interesting. Of course, Venus and Pluto have been doing a very interesting dance, a tango, if you will, for the last month or so, as Venus has been retrograde in the underworld where Pluto rules, just kind of stripping herself away, beating herself down to the bottom of the barrel. Of course, we reach that halfway point with Venus preparing to come out of that dark pit, not because anybody's coming to save her, but because she recognizes a brand new strength within herself. And of course, with all the events that have been thrown at us in a very short amount of time, even just reversing and rewinding to the 21st of December when we had that solstice portal energy really speed things up, Venus is now making her way up to the light that she has been focused on since awakening to her own inner strength and inner power. That Pluto, the great transformer, the great destroyer himself, definitely aided and assisted in really putting the pain and the suffering to our goddess in order for her to step into her own power. And many of us are doing just that. So it's super interesting. that Venus and Pluto are now going to be ruling over our life lessons for the next 18 months. And of course, we can expect a lot of death, a lot of destruction, a lot of pain and suffering be illuminated, especially on the collective level. Why? Because we have to turn that darkness into light. We have to be aware of it. And of course, that's when Venus, the goddess of love and beauty herself, the creator, the one who gives birth to brand new situations, brand new elements in our realities, she is going to take the slate in which get cleans off by Pluto, just clearing the space for us to rebuild, to recreate, to rebirth a brand new reality. We also moved into Aquarius season. Now, we are just in the beginnings of Aquarius season, but let me tell you, I bet you your head is spinning. I bet you time feels very super weird, kind of very slow while it's happening, but going at a very accelerated rate when you look back at it. I bet you your head is just popping off with rapid thoughts, multiple conflicting thoughts. There are insights coming in that we can't really put our finger on right now, but we know something's changed. The air, the energy is lighter. And because Aquarius energy, ruled over by Uranus, the great awakener himself, is really pushing for us to reconstruct our social norms, our social values, our roles and responsibilities to our own selves, and of course, how it is that we contribute our individual skills and talents and energy to the collective, we're definitely going to get a taste of what this whole age of Aquarius is all about in Aquarius season. So that brings us up to this week. What do we got going on this week? Well, first of all, Mercury bumps into the sun. This is a beautiful aspect in astrology because it definitely sets the tone for Mercury's next approximate 13-month transit. Mercury, of course, ruler of the mental plane. He is retrograde and Venus is retrograde, which is kind of interesting considering that Mercury rules over our thoughts and Venus rules over our emotions. It's very much heart and head on a drug trip, on an acid trip. They're in the unconscious realm. They're having, this bond with one another that isn't going to make sense until they both wake up and we can start bringing those fragmented ideas, those little pieces of our dreamscape, of our unconscious rising to the surface before we're actually going to be able to make sense of it. So this next week, especially until Venus is the first one to come out of the retrograde on the 29th, while these two are retrograde in the underworld, you best believe that this next week is going to be jam-packed, filled with lessons in order for us to get our heart and our head on the same page, which couldn't hurt us because we've been flying by the seat of our pants, taking all of the wild card energy being thrown at us, haven't had a whole lot of time to sit and register all that has transpired, let alone actually make sense of it in our mental and emotional fields. So this week, we're definitely going to see a lot of aha moments take place in our mental plane, in our heart space, to get those two on the same page. We have Mars, ruler of our physical energy, of our willpower, our determination, our passion, our desires, even our anger, moving out of Sagittarian energy, which is a fire sign. We definitely revealed some truth. We definitely had some tough love life lessons thrown at us that pushed us for a deeper understanding, a more purposeful meaning. We really did question a lot of things. And of course, now that Mars is moving out of Sagittarius and moving into Capricorn, this is when we roll our sleeves up and actually get our hands dirty. Of course, the Capricorn energy is the great manifester of the zodiac. We like to start building things. What are we building? We're building the cornerstone foundation of what it is that needs to be built in order to house the kinds of dreams and visions, especially the long-term ambitions that we've now realized that we know we want to pursue. And Mars is like a workhorse in Capricorn energy, is going to be highly productive, very serious though, in its productivity, because we're having to do things logically and practically and calculated. And of course, We have a lot of other energies, a lot of other planetary energies really kind of showing us where it is that there's a time to be aggressive and push forward. And then there's a time to step back and watch those pieces fall together. Mars moving into Capricorn, there's going to be a lot more aggressiveness in our physical energy, pushing us to bridge the gap between where it is that we're at and where it is that we want and need to be. We're going to have the last quarter moon in Scorpio. And let me tell you, Scorpio energy is very transformative. A lot of people kind of squirm when we talk about Scorpio energy because it highlights the shadow self in order to empower us and enlighten us. Again, it is where we kind of do that deep transformation in our psyche, in our heart space. It is when we unearth a lot of the darkness, a lot of the shadow parts of ourself, and we get to illuminate it to the light and make it make sense. And then there's a whole transformation that follows. The last quarter moon is essentially when we recognize that this is a good time to let it all go, just to surrender. Of course, like I've been saying, yes, we've been through a purging time. Yes, we've been through some trauma. Yes, we've been through a whole hell of a lot of pain, a whole hell of a lot of adjustments. But here's the thing. We haven't really had time to be consciously aware of all that we've had to let go of. We've just been flying by the seat of our pants. So the last quarter moon in Scorpio is definitely going to be a conscious awareness of what it is that we're moving away from and cleaning the slate for, because we have a lot of goals, we have a lot of dreams. And you know what? Through Aquarian season, we're definitely going to get bigger pieces of the puzzle actually click together so that we know where we're going, we know what direction we're taking, and we even have a little bit of a map on how we're going to get there. We have Mercury, who is retrograde still, moving out of the Aquarian energy, moving back into Capricorn. So here's the thing. Mercury moved into Aquarian energy, blew our minds wide open, right? Just been spinning, just been trying to keep up. There's been a lot of, I want to say productive processing, but really there's so many conflicting thoughts and memories popping up and futuristic visions and aha moments. They're all kind of conflicting. They're all trying to like run through the door frame all at one time and nobody's getting through. Well, we've had enough realization. We've had enough realizing where it is that, you know, in Capricorn season, especially when Mercury was in Capricorn season, the limiting beliefs that we've been having, the negative narratives that we've had. And then we moved into this Aquarian energy and suddenly, you know, we realized where it is that we have to do better and we have to push the boundaries and we have to be brighter and we have to, you know, focus on the possibilities and focus on the future because, you know what? The present moment has been tough. Well, Mercury, now moving back into Capricorn, we get to do things differently. So yeah, those negative narratives are likely going to creep back in and we're going to feel semi-depressed because we only got a couple of days to actually feel semi-hopeful about what's going on here. And then the darkness starts to creep in. But here's the thing. We have the knowledge and wisdom at this particular point to rewrite these narratives, but we have to be conscious of them. So Mercury retrograding back into Capricorn. Now we have to rethink our long-term plans. We have to rethink our long-term goals. We have to think of those long-term limiting beliefs that we've been conditioned to have automatically pop into our head every single time we get a glimmer of hope of moving forward. Those dark force energies try to pull us back into the darkness. They don't want us to grow. They don't want us to evolve. They do not want us to enlighten ourselves. So we're going to have a lot of strength, a lot of power this time because we're aware of it. And we're going to be creeping back in that Capricorn energy and facing some of the things that have happened to us, especially at the fact that once Mercury is actually prepared to go direct, Mercury will be going direct at 24 degrees in Capricorn, which actually rewinds us to around the December 21st solstice portal, which we're going to be talking about later on. So it's all very connected, but we are going to have to step back, retrace our steps, kind of face those things once again, and really stand in our power by using the wisdom and the knowledge, using the strength that we've had to accumulate, especially in our mental plane over the last month or so, to our advantage and nip it in the bud. Definitely rewrite the narrative, definitely switch up the storyline, and definitely lean closer to the possibilities and the hopefulness that we had for such a very, very short amount of time while Mercury was in Aquarius. So the last thing that we have as we wrap up this last final week of January is that on the 29th, we're going to have Venus, the goddess of love and beauty and self-worth and pleasure and happiness and joy, now go direct. She is reaching ground level from this bottomless, dark ass pit that she's been in, right? She spent like 40 days, 40 nights in that underworld, picking the layers of herself apart in order to get really humbled and real with herself. What actually is worth her time and energy and love? Who is actually worth her time, energy, and love? We're all coming out of this with a different set of values, a different worth that we see within ourselves, a different relationship dynamic, a different want, need, and desire to do different things that actually invoke happiness in our day-to-day life. We do that because we've had to really face the darkness in a lot of ways. And now that Venus is going direct, there's a little bit of energy backing us to make the kinds of changes that we know we have to make if we're going to free ourselves from some of these power struggles that we've been having, both within ourselves and in our personal relationships. So yeah, we are wrapping up January. We are preparing to move into February. And let me tell you, February being the second month, of course, in this 2022 year, the numerology is speaking of 4 2s. What do we know? Well, first of all, the number 4 is just 2 times 2, but the basic numerological vibration and life lesson that the number 2 brings us is build, create, birth. And that's what 2022 is all about. So we're definitely going to be taking a look at the fact that January, oh my goodness, January was a lot about letting go and releasing and surrendering and death and destruction, to be honest with you, because that's what needs to happen in order for a new beginning to actually take place. And as a vibratory life lesson of number 1 being the first month, many of us have seen a lot be removed from our lives in order for us to have to start new, have to start fresh, have to be at a brand new beginning. Well, now moving into February, which, we'll cover in the February energy forecast a little bit more in depth. But now we're looking to take that beginning cycle that has already got initiated, whether we want it to be initiated in this way or not is neither here nor there. Now we're going to build off of that. And when we take a look at the fact that, what are we building? Well, we're rebuilding ourselves. We're rebuilding our realities, our self-worth, our self-value, our relationships, our skills, our talents, our money matters, our routines. There's been a lot of change to our physical realms. And now we have to kind of take what has been thrown at us and make the best of it. And we're definitely going to see a lot of that. And we're going to see a lot of focus on the home, on the family, building, creating, giving birth to brand new boundaries, to a brand new foundation that we're going to, use as the blueprint as we continue throughout the year to actually construct the kinds of dreams and visions that we came into this year looking to manifest. Again, Capricorn season was about thinking long-term what it is that we wanted to bring into this life. We're going to spend the next cycle doing all the different parts of building that house that we talked about through the stages, through the blueprints, through setting the foundation down, getting the structure up, insulating the walls, getting the windows in, the whole shebang. This whole year is about building this damn dream house. So, we definitely have to recognize that we are still reeling from the chaos and from some pain and trauma that really disrupted our realities. And now we have to roll our sleeves up and get busy on making sure that the realities that are still in existence for us are the best and the strongest they can possibly be. So before we jump into the Ascension symptoms, I just want to take this chance to thank you once again. The continued love and support that continues to roll in, not only over my girl Taya, who I had to let go of pretty much 2 weeks ago. I actually just brought her ashes home yesterday. I have her all set up at home. It was a highly emotional time, 2 weeks to the day, but you know what? Very much needed. It has been a very, very long 2 weeks, but also like, where the hell did that 2 weeks go? Like, pain and trauma does a very, very interesting number on our memory and time perception. And I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to thank you for taking the time to share with me your stories of having to let, your furry friend go. What dawned on me is that in my state of pure rawness and vulnerability, it actually held enough space for many of you to not only relive that pain and trauma that you had in your life going through that similar situation, but gave you the space to realize that you didn't heal it as much as you would have wanted to at that time. And I think it was a beautiful thing for all of us to share the stories of, how profound our furry little friends are to us when they're here, and how devastating and heartbreaking it is to have to let them go. And, as painful as it is for me to think that there's this many people out in the world that are carrying this kind of, brokenheartedness with them, it also brings us together. And I think that this is what this community is all about, is just giving each other the space, the love, the support to be able to heal through some of these things that most of us don't even want to talk about. And I think that as uncomfortable as it was to be that raw and vulnerable with y'all, I am 100% okay with how it happened, with me making that decision, because you know what? It opened up the forum for so many of us to come together and heal these particular heart wounds for each other and with each other. I also want to thank you for the love and support that you continued to give over the loss of my friend. It has literally been a wild 2 weeks, a very painful 2 weeks. And what I've been noticing is, there's been a lot of spirits looking to leave this earth plane and go over to the other side where they can be a little bit more of power and help in the spiritual war. And B, that the power of all of us coming together to support one another in our times of isolation and just feeling alone and feeling overwhelmed and feeling confused, I think is super freaking powerful. Now, one might debate that whole fact because we're all kind of low vibe when we're sad and, crying and whatever, but this has been the time of release. And so I think that coming together and giving each other the love and support for us to release this kind of emotional baggage and leave it here in the heavier, denser earth plane, for us to kind of use our energetic bodies for good and elevate to that next vibration and frequency, I think has been an absolute blessing. So I want to thank you for all the love and support that you've given me, that you've given other members of this community. Let's keep the healing going. I also want to thank you for downloading your 2022 calendar. I have in the works a little video on how it is that you can maximize this 2022 energy guide calendar according to your individual birth chart. I know a lot of people, have definitely done the very little kind of framework that I kind of outlined at the beginning of the energy guide workbook. And I've had some emails about what can I do more? How can I dig into my birth chart? And I'm trying to prevent making it a whole course because Lord knows I have enough information and I could rant and rave for hours. But I am working on just a little bit of a help so that we can get a little bit more in depth into your own individual birth chart and how to use your individual birth chart to maximize the 2022 energy calendar. And hopefully that'll give you guys a huge indicator on what it is you need to be prepared for, what months are going to be most important to you for your evolution and for the changes in your life. So definitely I'm hoping to get that out before February. I'll keep you posted in my daily forecasts when that's about to drop. I also want to thank you for those of you who took the opportunity to start your 2022 off right and become a monthly moon subscriber. I am going to leave the subscription open for probably a couple more months. I can probably take on a couple more clients to give you guys, and just so that you know, as a monthly moon subscriber, you get basically 2 half-hour readings and your moon guide personalized to you and your birth chart every month. So new moon, full moon, you're getting a personalized reading, a birth chart reading, twice a month with the moon guides to accompany that. And I am going to keep that open a little bit longer because you know what? I like my subscribers. I think the subscription thing is a good, affordable way to constantly be in alignment with your chart, with your path, with your evolution. So I'm going to free some more space open some more space, free up some spaces for a couple more subscribers to sign up. But I wanted to thank you for all of you who decided to become a subscriber. And for those of you who have been asking, I am going to be opening my books back up for February appointments. Not sure what day that is going to drop as of yet, but those of you who have reached out and kind of said that you would be interested in booking a session, I will continue to keep my word. I will give you that 24-hour advance before my calendar goes live. And should you be interested in booking an appointment with me for February, go ahead, go on my website, shoot me an email, let me know that you want to get on that advance list before my February calendar drops. Okay, so the homework's out of the way. Let's talk about the ascension symptoms. The very first thing that I feel compelled to talk about is the time warp that we've been in. So for those of you who have been following me for quite some time, not only do I want to thank you, but I want to rewind you back to the 21st of December when we had the solstice. It opened up that whole portal. Things have been absolutely batshit crazy since before Christmas. I talked about how it was in an accelerated time of progression, of evolution, of enlightenment. I talked about how things were going to get absolutely fast forward and cray cray. And what I want to say is that I don't know about y'all, but I think that that's pretty freaking accurate. Especially since I'm going to say the beginning of this year, and I don't know if I'm just speaking selfishly because of my own situation, losing my girl and then losing my friend within 4 days of one another. And the last 2 weeks have been an absolute shit show of me trying to remind myself of the steps of grief and the steps of depression and being aware of the funk that I'm in and pushing myself to do better, to be better, so that I don't lose like months and months and months of my life again to that darkness. But I think generally, based off of my client sessions, based off of my conversations here on YouTube, what I'm going to say is that it feels like a general consensus that like legitimately the last 2 to 3 weeks, especially 2022, like coming into 2022, has been an absolute shitstorm. And let me tell you, so the time warp thing, first of all, what they don't want to talk about in our earth plane is how chaos and trauma and depression leads to memory loss and dissociation, because that is a real thing. But what we're also not talking about is the fact that Mother Earth, Gaia, she woke up like many moons ago. She's been accelerating her earth pulse, if you will. That's why we track the Schumann Resonance. And we have had some very, very interesting electrical patterns come into the cosmos. We have had some serious solar disruptions. We have had solar flares and C-class sunspots blasted and blackouts and the whole 9 yards. And this is just super indicative of them kind of putting the pressure on us to prepare for the great solar event that we suspect is coming, around the 2024-ish mark. That's what the age of Aquarius is all about. That's when we blast off into space, so to speak. I exaggerate. We might not blast off into space. Well, yeah, I mean, we will. Humanity and collectively, there are going to be lots of space travel and space adventures. But what I'm saying is that like we are going to continue to increase and then lock in a new stable level of this cosmic radiation coming into the earth plane. And when that happens, time does warp. Like, first of all, time is a linear man-made construct, so we got to get that out of the way. But like, it's also affecting the energy coming in, affecting our physical bodies, is also affecting the construct of time. Like, our realities are changing. And this time warp is, like I said, like when you're in the moment, it's like, oh my God, this feeling, this moment, these thoughts, they're never going to end. There's never going to be an ending point to them. Then all of a sudden, you know, it's 2 weeks later and you're looking back and saying like, where the hell did those 2 weeks go? Like literally all the days are blurring together and all the time is blurring together. And it can go from feeling like it's at a absolute standstill to being on such a fast forward that we're disoriented. So I want to talk about this disorientation that we're having. And a lot of this is because we're now in Aquarius season. There's a lot of energy coming in from the cosmos. Our crown activations are popping off. We have rapid thoughts. Let me just say this. We, at this particular point, are being heavily guided and assisted by our futuristic selves and the collective energy of our futures. And so that's why we feel like we're strangers in our reality right now, that nothing is real, that everything is just kind of stupid. We're not sure what's going on. It's because the higher intellect is leading us in this journey. And we are being downloaded with visions, with insights, with dreams, with memory blips, with intuitive insights that we don't quite make full sense of as of yet. But this is why our heads are spinning. This is why there's a million tabs opening. This is why we're dizzy, we're dissociative, like we're just spinning in one spot. And it's super, super disorienting and frustrating. So that's the time warp. But the reason why we're having this time warp is because we've been in the birth canal for quite some time, right? Like we are giving birth to new earth. We are giving birth to new versions of ourselves. And of course, what has to happen in order to be born? Well, if you believe in reincarnation, which you should, because you've been here before and you should remember it by now, but you have to die before you can be reborn. And many of us have been going through that death. Now, with death, right, comes a lot of pain. And I want you just to understand that the pain, the physical pain that we are experiencing is because we are basically shedding our past, our emotions, our limiting beliefs, our storylines, our soul contracts. And we are lightening the load, if you will, to fly high with the higher vibrations and frequencies coming in from the cosmos. We are literally a snake that is shedding its skin. That's the transformative situation that we're currently in. And I don't know, I don't like frequently talk to snakes. They're not my most favorite beings on this planet. But I would say that there's a certain level of discomfort that comes with having to shed one's skin. I often pick up in my backyard, like springtime, like full, like, what do you call them? They look like snake condoms, really. But like, you know, the whole exoskeletal snake skin, and you can pick it up and actually see like how big the snake is. And you can see the scales in it, and you can see like these very fine details, the ribbing of its underbelly. And, you know, one would have to think that, damn, that would feel some good to get that old skin off, but ouch, getting it off, right? And I feel like that's what we are going through. That's what we have been doing. That's what we're likely going to continue to do, just at a lesser degree, because essentially we are preparing to enter into a brand new skin suit, a brand new cycle. And, you know, we're going through this situation right now, preparing for that rebirth. And of course, you know, the snake, as it knows that it's shedding its skin, can't just, you know, curl up and let it happen. It needs to stay active. It needs to continue to slither. It needs to go on with its day and its life in order to help the process and purge that skin suit fully. And that's what we're going through. That's why it's painful. That's why it's uncomfortable. So let's talk about the uncomfortability for a second. Many of us have been having a lot of painful heart activations. And those heart activations are likely going to continue, especially if you have Venus dominant placements in your chart. They're likely going to continue until Venus crawls her ass out of that dark pit that she's been in and goes direct and sees the light on the 29th. Right now, she's essentially in the underworld. She is going through the ego identity, the ego death that we're all going through in relation to our own self-worth, our own self-value. We are examining our relationships, examining what makes us happy, examining where it is that we've been continually pouring into things that we are no longer in alignment with. And we've had about enough. And when Venus comes into a direct position on the 29th, we're going to be able to breathe again. We're going to feel a hell of a lot more stable in our emotional field. We are going to definitely be in alignment with taking actions that promote happiness and joy and pleasure and peace and harmony. Because you know what happens? I'm going to give you this analogy. You know what happens after you have the flu? So, you know, when you're sick and you literally you feel like you're dying and you can't even envision ever, feeling good again because you feel that bad. And then you start questioning all the times that you took for granted of being able to breathe over both nostrils. And you take for granted, never noticing how many food commercials there are because ever since you had the flu and your stomach's sick, food just totally turns you off. We become humbled when we are at our worst. And when things turn around and the trauma stops and the pain stops and we start feeling better again, we are so freaking appreciative of our lives, of the good things, of the joy, of the happiness. We become so appreciative of the smaller little details in life that we took for granted. And this is exactly what we're going through right now. We're in the darkness of the underworld, people. Okay? We are essentially halfway through our death process. When Venus goes direct, she's going to be so freaking humbled. She's going to just have a totally different set of boundaries, right? Because we're not wasting time on bullshit anymore. We recognize that time is too precious for that. Life is too fragile to wait. We are humbled. And those heart activations are going to totally shift in a totally different way once Venus actually comes out of that dark ass pit. But until then, especially with the week that we're about to have, again, Mercury and Venus sitting in the underworld, having this great little trauma bond, right? And they're both going through a certain death. Mercury's going through all the bullshit that he's been telling himself, all the lies that he has held on to. He's questioning the truth. He's questioning his beliefs. He is recognizing all the times that he bit his tongue when he should have popped off and actually spoke his truth. He's going through a lot. And Venus is over here, thinking about every single time she's given her power away and that she hasn't advocated for herself, that she's put her own want, needs, and desires at the bottom of the back burner, if you will, to try and make everybody else happy. And she's recognizing now, why? Because when I need people, when I'm down at the bottom of this pit crying out for help, nobody comes. It's just me. There's nobody coming to save me. It's just me. I have to save my freaking self. So these two, Venus and Mercury, they got a lot of talking going on. They're under the influence of drugs because they're retrograde. They're all up in their unconscious. They're bringing stuff up from the past. Basically, Mercury is your head. Venus is your heart. And these two have been on totally different earth planes for such a long time that this is the first time that they get raw and real and vulnerable with one another, that they talk it out, that they are just wide open with all that has transpired so that they can find common ground. Mercury is going to build Venus up with a brand new narrative, a brand new perspective, a brand new truth, going to help her. He's still sitting in the bottom of the pit of the darkness, helping her get out of this dark hole. She's got to get out of there first, right? Mercury will follow, so we don't have to worry about that. But this next week that we're about to go into, wrapping up the life lessons of January, is very focused on Mercury and Venus, sitting in the depths of the darkness with each other, building each other up in a different way, getting real with one another. And at the end of this, our heart and our head are not only going to be on the same page, not only going to be supporting one another, but are going to be so freaking grateful for what it is that we have left in our realities. And we are going to just be humbled with a brand new perspective on our lives. So the heart activations are going to continue. The head spinning, the dizziness, the echoing if you're in your ears. I don't know if y'all been having ear issues. I've been having ear issues. So physically, my ears are itchy and red and hot. And like I'm fidgeting all the time. I want to scratch them, but the itch is like in the inside of my brain that I could never get to. I guess, when we're talking sensory, I'm hearing a lot of things that I know are not in this 3D realm, especially for my dreams. I know we're going to talk about the dreams here in a second, but the dream information and the dream situations, like I can hear in my physical ears some of the dialogue that is happening in my dream state. And I know this probably isn't happening for everyone, mostly because I'm just absolutely heartbroken and still traumatized over losing my dog. But like I hear my dog barking from another realm. I hear her trying to communicate with me from another realm. And even my friend that just passed away, I can hear him in my physical ears, but I know he's not here. I know he's talking to me and speaking to me from another realm, but I can hear it here in my physical ears. So I don't know if y'all are having any ear issues. I do contribute this mostly because our central nervous systems are all jacked up. We're in Aquarius season. Uranian energy rules over Aquarius season. That's our central nervous system. Anxiety and restlessness and this anticipation of something that we don't even know what's about to happen. We're ready. We're ready for change. We're ready for a new direction. We're ready to jump in. But our central nervous system is kind of like tapped out. And I know that that's why we're having auditory sensations. We're also having, our eyes are saying different things. So I want to talk about this for a second. And I know I always feel the need to say, like, I'm sorry, this is going to come off as like batshit crazy, but I swear I'm like a normal weirdo. But I also know that many of you are going through the same thing. So I don't feel as weird. But I'm seeing threads. So many of us are used to seeing orbs or flashing lights or sparkly, things in our peripheral vision. That is the spirit realm. That is another energy, frequency, vibration from another realm that our physical bodies are now orienting and adjusting to due to the high levels of cosmic radiation coming in. This is why we have ascension symptoms. This is why our body hurts. This is why we feel like we're sick and dying, because we are essentially upgrading our DNA. I don't know if you know, but we are carbon-based beings, and we are now moving into the crystalline being. And that means that we have to let go of the earthly, let's call it minerals and makeup of our physical bodies in order to have the multiple strands in our DNA be activated. That's our light body. That's our energetic body. So we've been seeing orbs. We've been seeing, flashes and sparkles. I'm seeing threads, and I literally mean, and I'll give you the best analogy that I can. When in the daytime, in the springtime, wherever you are, when like the light hits off of a spider web or like a strand of a spider web, and it looks like holographic almost. That's what I'm seeing. And that many people would call that the matrix grid. And they might be right. But what I'm seeing here is almost like a interdimensional bleed of constructs, of realms, of blueprints of other realms in this realm. So I'm not just talking like there was one little cobweb that took a glimmer of light. Like I'm literally seeing the threads, the cords that we have, that we attach to in our physical environments, that we have with one another. I'm seeing the actual threads of light, of information, of energy connect in this physical realm to the other blueprints of other realms in which we're living in. And again, I know that sounds batshit crazy, but I have a feeling a couple of you are going to know what I'm talking about. And I thank you for that, because again, I don't mind being the weirdo. I'm used to it. I've done the weirdo thing my whole life. But there are levels of weirdos, and y'all make me feel like the most normal weirdo sometimes. So I want to thank you for that. But that's just another example about where our physical senses are being jacked up by our central nervous system that is being activated and triggered by both Aquarius season and Uranus now going direct. So I want to talk about, I guess this ties into the heart activations, but many of us have come up with this cough, okay? This very deep, dry, spasmodic, out of the blue, clearing the throat type of cough. And many of us have been spitting up clear phlegm. Now, clear is good. If you have yellow or green phlegm, please consult a medical doctor or treat yourself holistically, because that is an indicator of an infection, but we won't get into medicine right now. I just want to talk about the clear phlegm. Now, this can be coming out of your sinuses as well. We have to remember the sinuses do run in the back of the throat down to, the lung, stomach, chest area. With these heart activations, you are getting that coughing just for us to try and expand our lung space, because of course we have to push the limits of our body in order to create an expansion in our bodies, in order to let more light in. And when we let more light in, more heavier gunk has to come out. And so that phlegm is definitely being activated to come out. I just want you to think about Mercury and Venus being kind of drugged and unconscious in the underworld. And when you watch somebody when they're sleeping and they're damn near unconscious and they're in a totally different world, having a different experience, they're coughing, they're twitching, their eyes are flickering back and forth, and they're not even aware of this, okay? So this is, again, like energetically, subconsciously, our energetic bodies are going through something that our physical bodies are having the actions in order to trigger that physical event to let the energy go, to let that release. So I don't know about y'all, but I have noticed that there are small cuts, even burns, blisters, bumps, creeping up, yes, on fingers, on the thumbs, because again, a couple of weeks ago, we had a lesson in learning to conduct our own power. But these are all kind of in the whole category of skin eruptions. So rash, pimples, blisters, sores, whatever the case may be, cuts, burns, they're all kind of wounds to the outer exterior of our identity. Now, just as our body knows how to send the right cells to that particular damaged area in order to create a scab, in order for the healing to begin, we have that same type of process that takes place in our energetic body when there is a wound, when there is a trauma, when there is a blockage. And the cuts and the burns and the blisters and the pimples and the rashes and the skin eruptions, as annoying as they are, as painful as they are, it's actually a good sign that there is a deep transformative healing taking place within us. And these physical manifestations are energetic indications that things are rising to the surface in order to be released, in order to be purged. So we are going to have a different kind of ache and pain take over. Here's what I will say to you. Many of us have had this ascension flu achiness, this coldness, this dampness in our body, like we, have been laying on the couch forever. This new bone achiness and pain achiness is more contributing to Mars moving into Capricorn. So I want you to think of like having a really tough day of labor, a really good day at the gym where you are physically exhausted. Now, it might be sore, it might be hard to get out of bed the next day, but once you start working it, there's a certain strength and satisfaction that comes over you from working your body the way that it did. This is going to be a good test on where it is that we're gaining our stability, where we're gaining our strength, where we're recognizing our physical strength. Many of us hate on our bodies for failing us, for, coming up with these weird symptoms, for the chronic illness that many of us face. We don't recognize that our physical bodies are the vessel that got us through this lifetime, and that the aches and pains are merely an indication of the negligence that we gave it until it reached a breaking point. One thing that I've learned in my healing journey over the last decade is that you have to befriend your body. I was enemies with my body for a very long time. I couldn't understand why my body was, against me and letting me down and failing on me all the time. And it wasn't until I shifted the narrative and I actually started taking care of myself and recognizing that my body was asking for help that I had basically neglected to give it until we were in a crisis and traumatic situation. And now the narrative changes the vibration and the energy that your body holds. So now when you wake up and you have a physical ailment or a pain, you can be sweet and kind to yourself and say, okay, what is it that I haven't been giving you? What is it that you need today? What can I do to support you for all the years in which you've supported me? And that really changed the dialogue in your healing journey. And I welcome and invite you to do that as we move through this week. And as we wake up with some aches and pains, some popping, some cracking. But again, it is a testament to the strengths of our bodies and not a testament of our weaknesses. So with that being said, yes, the dreams are still popping off. Yes, the insights will continue to come in, especially once we get into February here. We start February off with the new moon in Aquarius, which is absolutely just going to pop the caps right off of our crown. There's new information coming in daily, new perspectives changing daily. Now, that's not going to change some of the very big dramatic events that have taken place, but the understanding and the perspective, the reframing of the narrative that we have around those events are 100% changing. And when we change the narrative, again, Mercury headspace, we change the emotions, that way that we feel about it, again, Venus heart space, and then we get the two on the same page before Venus crawls her ass out of that dark hole and we start putting things in order in the way that they should have always been. The last thing that I want to talk about, well, maybe the last thing, is this film on our tongue. Now, we had this a couple of months ago, got really intense, but a lot of that was due to the phlegm issue that we were trying to release. What I hear in my head when they talk about this weird film that we're going to have on our tongue, it's not going to be the same kind of film, but what it's going to be is a repercussion or a validation that we're no longer swallowing truth pills that are sugar coated. The truth and our quest for knowledge and truth is popping off in Aquarius season. That's what it's all about. We are opening up our minds, opening up our perspectives. We are being downloaded with a higher intelligence. We are reworking situations that have no longer been working in alignment for humanity and the collective. And a lot of that means that we have a lot of truth pills to swallow. Many of us here are no strangers to those truth pills. But let me tell you, they have a different coating on them this time. And it really is kind of letting itself be well known with this film in our mouth. Even our spit tastes different. And I know that's gross, but I think y'all are going to know what I mean when I say that. Everything is changing biologically, physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, spiritually, interdimensionally, galactically. Everything is changing. And that has a direct impact on our physical bodies. So I guess I lied. I want to talk about two things that got brought up multiple times by multiple people in the conversation, in the comments, and in my inbox. The one thing that I want to talk about, because so many of y'all seem to have the same problem, I myself included, is driving. So driving has become very disorienting. I want to let you know that driving has always been a very interesting experience in order for us to technically leave our bodies at a time in which we shouldn't, okay? So driving, there's a lot of stimulus. We're in a moving vehicle, we're low to the ground, but we're hitting volumes and speeds that our body is not used to, okay? It's a miracle that we don't take automobiles a little bit more, I guess, appreciate them a little bit more, because like they go fast, right? You know, when you get in a car and you go fast, you can feel the velocity, you can feel the weight on your physical body. You're twisting, you're turning, you hit the brakes. It's a sudden jolt. But here's the thing. Our physical bodies are lightening up. Our physical bodies, although they might feel heavy and weighted a lot of the times when it's through aches and pains, we're elevating to new vibrations and frequencies. So when we're going 100 kilometers an hour or miles per hour for my American friends, I feel like that is now like Mach speeds to our energetic bodies. You have to think of the light codes coming in. You have to think of the information that is transmitting between all of the light workers and star seeds right now. Information literally is at the speed of light. Okay, like I'm not sure if you know this, I actually got in a little bit of an Instagram confrontation with somebody who chose to unfollow me because they didn't understand what I was talking about. But again, I digress. The Schumann Resonance, it can black out for multiple reasons. And sometimes when the cosmic radiation gets so high, the instruments that we have to measure here on this physical realm, they don't register, they black out, they go offline. And the confrontation that I got in was this person who was dead set on saying, oh no, the engineer said that, we shut it down for maintenance. Well, that's great. I'm so glad that y'all might have that much confidence in what these people say, but there's always something else going on. Yes, I'm a conspiracy theorist, but as you may know, conspiracy theorists right now, we're running a 10 out of 10. Okay. We haven't been wrong about too much. What I'm saying and what I said to this particular individual is that there's more reasons of why the Schumann resonance would black out. This particular day, I think it was like the first or second week of January, I'd have to go back in the charts and check, but it was when we were having like the 33-hour blackout and then a 28-hour blackout. Well, on that same day, North Korea actually launched a nuclear missile that hit speeds of a Mach 10, okay? That is faster than anything that we could even fathom. And that kind of vibration and frequency that resonates throughout the cosmos is enough to put these instruments, these very sensitive instruments, out of whack. I want to talk about the underground volcano that just popped off and the huge, huge, huge tsunami that we should have had if it were in any other area other in which it was that it popped off. And I could go into a whole rant on why this particular area is so profound. I won't, but if you want to look up yourself, definitely look up the Easter Island triangle with this particular area of the map. It's in this triangle of very mystical places. I think some magical forces are coming back to this earth. And the fact that this particular person couldn't understand that what I was trying to say is that nobody's talking about the North Korean missile, right, that they launched off. Nobody's talking about that, but that was enough to reverberate throughout the cosmos and throw these instruments off and create a blackout. And then they had to cover up and say, oh, it was due to maintenance, blah, blah, blah. She decided I was a conspiracy theorist, that she wasn't subscribing to my timeline. She unsubscribed herself. All the love and luck to you. You're gonna need it. My point is that the driving situation brings us to a different energy, brings us to a different speed, brings us to a different velocity that our physical form now has to interpret in a different way. And our energetic bodies are so much more supreme than our biologic bodies are, that we are literally racing at the speed of light in the cosmos, in our higher selves. And that's why getting behind the wheel of a car is very disorienting now. It feels hella scary, hella dangerous. It is. We are literally putting ourselves in a very interesting portal of velocity between our physical environment and our higher selves. So a lot of people ask, like, why is driving now like a scary thing, and why does it feel like an outer body experience? It's because it is. Every single time that we level up, the boundaries in which we live in this physical plane alter. And you're going to notice, especially when we reach different speeds, different altitudes, different pressurized situations, that our physical body reacts differently. It overstimulates the central nervous system, which is popping off anyways because of Uranus and Aquarius. And we just have to kind of ground. We have to just stay present in our bodies. We just have to understand the process that we're going through. I am running a little bit late. I'm now over an hour. I do apologize. This is going to take forever for me to upload. The last thing that I want to talk about is that there's been multiple people asking about how they've been going through the onset of early menopause. Well, here's the thing. The whole awakening process opens up your energetic body to a realm of cosmic enlightenment, high vibrations and frequencies that, of course, have a direct impact on your physical form. Our biological and chemical bodies are constantly changing and elevating due to the amount of enlightenment, of awakening, of pure freaking healing, to be honest with you. Because every single time we release and purge the lower densities of our carbon-based humanoid body, we level up. And for those of you that are too young to be experiencing the onset of premenopause, it can be a very scary thing, but our hormones are biochemically produced in our brains, technically, and our brains are undergoing the most transformation due to the crown chakra activations coming in. This is where most of the energy is coming in. Our whole brain system, our whole neuroplasticity map in our brains are changing. Our organs, our pituitary in our brains are changing. Our eyes are opening up to different realms, to different vibrations and frequencies of light. All of this has an impact on every single system in our body. Our skeletal system, our bones, our structure change with the enlightenment process that we go through. Again, lightening the load. Our, connective tissue, our veins, our heart chakras, right? All of our liver, our kidneys, those are all purging tools. They are trying to get rid of the toxins, trying to get rid of the old light codes, trying to get rid of everything. So there's constantly this reset that our bodies are going through. And because we are technically accelerating our process through the awakening stage in order to get our light bodies at the highest vibration and frequency possible, that means that there's a huge alteration to our physical form. Now, also, don't be fooled. When the awakening process happens, we tend to care a little bit more about what we put in our bodies. Many of us change our diets. That alone is enough to disrupt your hormones, is enough to trigger them into an early menopause. And for the men out there, y'all go through your own type of change of life, right? And we're all accelerating our biological and chemical bodies when we are advancing and enlightening our light bodies. So I know that I could probably rant a little bit more about that, and I do have some things planned as soon as I get out of my depression and funk here. Right now, I'm just trying to get throughout the day without crying, and to try and keep some order in my home, and to try and make sure that I'm just not a blob on the couch staring out at the trees and contemplating life. But you know what? I'm going to get there. Not my first rodeo. We all have gone through this process before. We will all awaken. We will all come out of this on the other end as better versions of ourselves. But I still do have a lot of plans to bring a lot of videos and exploratory videos, answering your questions, going a little bit more into the physical part and the energetic part of how, we're affecting each of our bodies by when we elevate our energy and our vibration and frequency, the repercussions on our physical form. I have a whole series planned on that. I just got to get out of my own freaking way, get out of my funk, and get back on my good bullshit. But for now, that whole driving and early menopause explanation will have to do. So guys, I'm about talked out. I want to thank you for sitting with me, for sitting through all of this, for being here in the chat, for being here in the comments. I want to thank you for your love and support. I want to thank you for not only showing up for me, but for showing up for yourself. Sending you so much love. Hope you have the greatest week. I'll be back. We'll talk to you soon.